Mr. Men, Little Miss, Mr. Noisy's Wild Safari. Roger Hargreaves. Read along with these words: Mr. Bump, Mr. Noisy, flamingos, picture, 3, tree, camera, cheese, buffalo, squirrel, 2, bagpipe, alligator, 1, whistle. Mr. Bump and Mr. Noisy had been looking for flamingos all day, but so far all they had was a picture of Mr. Bump's rear end. "Maybe the flamingos would come if you weren't so noisy," said Mr. Bump. "Nonsense!" said Mr. Noisy. "All we need is my secret weapon, the finicky flamingo panpipe." Just then 3 flamingos landed on the tree branch. "Whoa!" Mr. Bump cried. "That's great!" shouted Mr. Noisy. "Where's my camera?" "Poopity poop!" yelled Mr. Bump. The flamingos had flown away and poopity pooped on his head. "What a great picture!" said Mr. Noisy. "Say cheese!" Mr. Noisy aimed his camera at Mr. Bump. "You're not smiling," said Mr. Noisy. "I wonder why not," grumbled Mr. Bump. "Let's move on to our next animal," said Mr. Noisy. Next, Mr. Noisy wanted to get a picture of the great buffalo. "The great buffalo is very big," said Mr. Bump. "Can we take a picture of a squirrel instead?" "No way! We need a buffalo!" shouted Mr. Noisy. "And I know just how to find one! We'll use my secret weapon, the 2-tone bamboo buffalo bagpipe." "Too bad," said Mr. Bump. "Looks like the bagpipe didn't work." Just then the great buffalo sat on top of him. "Poopity poop!" cried Mr. Bump. "Another great picture," said Mr. Noisy. "Say cheese!" "I can't," moaned Mr. Bump. "I was talking to the buffalo," replied Mr. Noisy. Next, Mr. Noisy wanted to find an alligator. "And not just any alligator," said Mr. Noisy. "I want to find the rare great white alligator." "Alligator?" said Mr. Bump. "You didn't say we were looking for one of those." "I'll just use my secret weapon, the all-aluminum alligator whistle," said Mr. Noisy. Mr. Noisy began to play his whistle. Mr. Noisy, said Mr. Bump. Mr. Noisy, yelled Mr. Bump as the alligator opened its mouth. Quiet down, Mr. Bump! You'll scare the alligator away, said Mr. Noisy. He played his whistle again. Yuck! said the alligator. He spit out Mr. Bump, who tasted very bad. Poopity poop, said Mr. Bump. I guess my whistle didn't work, said Mr. Noisy. Mr. Bump, where did you go? said Mr. Noisy. Oh well, I guess I'll have to find the hungry horn-tailed hippo on my own. Thank you for listening.